Hello, everyone. This is Mr. Los. Welcome. I hope you're all doing as well as possible. Yes, I'm in my car. If you know anything about me at all, I have a 3-year-old and a 1.5-year-old. And if you've ever been around people of that age, quiet is hard to come by. And this is by far the quietest part of my house or anywhere that I can get to right now in these times. In fact, it's so nice and quiet in here. I might stay in here. I might stay in here all day. I'm enjoying myself. Um, but anyway, the purpose of this video is to talk about the titration activity, some of the pre-lab information, and go through some of the pre-lab questions. So let's get right to it. I think I'm going to take off the video here. So what you're looking at is the titration activity itself, and I'm not going to read this whole thing to you, but just to walk you through some of the key parts here, the purpose of a titration generally is to find the concentration of something that you don't know the concentration of. You know, we've been talking a lot about concentration and molarity. What if you have a bottle of solution there and you know that it's maybe hydrochloric acid, but you don't know how concentrated it is? A titration can tell you that. The key pieces of lab equipment are a burette and a flask. Burettes are very accurate devices. You may have seen them. They're in pretty much all the chemistry classrooms hanging on the wall. And basically their job is to dispense volumes very, very accurately. So you typically put an acid in the burette or a base in the flask, or vice versa, one or the other. The stuff that you're actually putting in the burette is called the titrant, and the other stuff is called the analyte. And not that these terms are super duper important, but that's what they're called. You also use some kind of indicator. An indicator is a substance that changes colors in different conditions. For an acid-base titration, you're going to use an acid-base indicator that changes color. And the most important one, or the most commonly used acid-base indicator, is called, and this is quite a word here, phenolphthalein. Ladies and gentlemen, that word has 5 consonants in a row in the middle of the word. I think you'll have a hard time finding another word that's that way. I've learned to spell it properly almost all the time after 18 years of teaching chemistry, so I'm pretty proud of that. Phenolphthalein is clear and colorless in an acid or neutral solution, but it turns pink in a base. So in a common type of titration, what you might do is put an acid in the flask, put some phenolphthalein in there. It will be colorless because it's colorless in an acid. And then you put base in the flask. And as you add the base, you might see little splashes of pink color. But eventually it reaches what we call the endpoint, which is where it turns a light pink color that does not go away. And that's how you know to stop the titration. I think it's a really good idea. You know, if we were in a normal classroom doing this in real life, we would almost certainly do one of these titrations, and for real. It would be a great idea to watch this little video after you watch this one, just to see what it's like, to see what the actual process looks like, so you get a good feel for it. Once you reach the endpoint and you take some measurements of both volumes, it's a pretty simple calculation, which we'll get to in a second, to actually figure out the concentration. There's other indicators. Phenolphthalein is a great one to use for a lot of reasons, but for example, phenol red is another one that you could use. Phenol red is yellow in an acid and red in a base. So if you did your titration and you had the base in the flask, so you had the base in this part and you had the acid in this part in the burette, since phenol red is yellow in an acid and red in a base, if you put the base in the flask and you put some phenol red in there, then it would start off red and tend to turn yellow as the titration continues. And you would stop the titration when it turns yellow, or maybe kind of orangish, but because red and yellow make orange. But so when you do phenolphthalein, you would change color when it turns pink in this particular situation, or when you do phenol red, you would wait for it to turn a different color. It just depends on the indicator. And when you do the simulation, I think there's going to be a couple different indicators that you use. So that's just a quick background. Again, watch the example, and then the titration equation that we use, it works when the acid and base react in a 1-to-1 mole ratio, which is quite often, not every single time, and you are not going to have to do any titrations where they're not 1-to-1, so this equation will work for all the titrations we're going to do in our example. But it's MaVb equals MbVb. It looks a little bit like the dilution, quite a lot like the dilution formula, in fact, if you remember that one. But molarity of acid, molarity of base, volume of acid, volume of base are what everything stands for. And that's the actual mathematical equation you end up using. You can use any volume unit, but typically it's going to be milliliters. And we'll get back to using this equation in a second. And then also, we're going to think a little bit about what happens when acids and bases react. This is a generic kind of reaction. Most bases have a little hydroxide in them, and then something here, usually like potassium or sodium or something like that. And then acids tend to have a hydrogen listed as their first thing. And the pattern is that it's very much like the double replacement or double displacement reactions we looked at in the reactions unit, where basically it's going to be kind of the outside ones with the inside ones. So what always happens is the H and the OH match up to make an H2O, and then the outside ones are going to match up to make this compound here. You'll see what I'm talking about when I do an example here in a moment. As always, if you remember, at least me, when I talked about the reaction unit, the most important thing to do first is to make sure we write these substances correctly. So we'll have to think about balancing the charge and crisscrossing the charge, or however you do that. And we'll take a look, and I think you'll see when I do a couple of examples. So this is your pre-lab, and it's a good idea to change the color so that we can see, but I'm just going to work out a couple of these for you here. So the first one, what we're going to do, by the way, I didn't mention this, but the substance that's not water by chemists is called a salt. So NaCl is a famous salt, and I'm going to do this one for you, and you're going to see where that comes from here in just a second. But this one is done as an example, but our first example that you actually have to do is HCl plus NaOH. So I'm just going to write that out up here and show you what it looks like. So our acid is HCl, and our base is NaOH. So we're going to do, sorry about my handwriting here. It's a very common and very famous sort of acid-base reaction in chemistry circles. So it's going to be a lot like those double replacement reactions. It's going to be the outside things and the inside things. Water is going to be one of your products. So you can see this is kind of like HOH, right? If I kind of put them together. But another way to write HOH would be H2O. And then my other product is Na plus Cl. Now, if you have your periodic table and you remember, Na forms a +1 charge and Cl forms a -1 charge. So since those things are +1 and -1, they're going to match up evenly just like that. Remember, you always write the positive thing first, which is Na. And there we have it. That's going to be our finished reaction. It's balanced and everything. So in here, you would type in, now I can write it in, since I happen to have a pen, but you can type it in, NaCl and KO, water. This last one's always going to be water. So you got that going for you. And then, yeah, NaCl is salt in what we classically call table salt. Another example, I'm going to skip down to H2SO4. So H2SO4 is being reacted with LiOH. Now, one of our products is always water, the OH and this. So don't worry about the fact that there's a little H2 there or whatever. That is going to change our balancing, but water is always going to be H2O. And then our other substance here is we have sulfate. SO4 is sulfate. That's one of those polyatomic ions. Its charge is -2. And lithium's charge is +1. So we've got a lithium that's +1 and an SO4 that's -2. So whether you want to crisscross the charge or just think about the fact that we need 2 lithiums to balance out the -2 from the sulfate, Li2SO4's formula is going to look like that. So in this case, we will have to balance this out. It's not balanced. For example, there's 2 lithiums over here and 1 lithium over there. I'm going to try to balance the lithiums first. And so I put a 2 there, and that's going to balance those lithiums. Balance the polyatomics as a whole. So there's 1 sulfate on each side, so the sulfates are going to be good. Now, if we look at the total number of hydrogens, there's 2 hydrogens right here, plus another 2 right there, there's 4. So if I put a 2 there, that's going to balance the hydrogens. And then also it's going to balance the oxygens, because there's 2 oxygens on this side, not counting the ones in the sulfate, 2 oxygens there. So then now that's balanced. So if we go down here and write it in, now when I did it in the opposite order. It doesn't matter. But we did 2H2O. By the way, if you're typing this, you can try to get the subscripts in there. If you're using Google Docs, if you press the control button and the comma button, that makes a subscript. And then Li2SO4 is the other one here. So you can try to get the subscripts in there ideally. Otherwise, just kind of type in without them. So that's the general idea of running these acid-base reactions. This one, just to help you out, that's acetate. So you've got this hydrogen, and then these hydroxides, they're going to form the water, and then we have the acetate polyatomic ion. All of them except for this one and the last one are going to react in a 1-to-1 ratio. Okay, so the last thing that I want to go over is a couple of these example problems. So to go over a couple of these problems where we use the molarity equation, MAVA equals MBVB. And molarity of acid, volume of acid, molarity of base, volume of base. So we need to pick through the problem here. And again, this only works when the acid and base react in a 1-to-1 ratio, but you're not going to have any problems or encounter any situations where it doesn't to actually do a titration problem. Okay, 18 milliliters of unknown molarity HCl. So my molarity of acid is the thing that I don't know. And it tells me that I have 18.0 milliliters of my acid. And the acid is titrated to the endpoint with 13.3 milliliters of 2.5 molar NaOH. Okay, so the molarity of the base is 2.50, and the volume of the base is 13.3. So from there, I'm going to solve for molarity of acid. Molarity of acid is being multiplied by 18 milliliters. So let's divide both sides of the equation by 18 milliliters to get molarity of acid by itself. So the milliliter unit is going to cancel out right here. It's going to leave me with a molarity, which is what I want. And this cancels out over here. So the math is 2.5 times 13.3 divided by 18. That's going to come out to about 1.847. Call it 3 sig figs, 1.85. So we have used this titration process, and we've figured out that that HCl must have a concentration of 1.85. Next one here, and by the way, feel free, if you didn't quite get that, go back, take another look. But let me just do one more example with you. A student is titrating 21 milliliters of unknown molarity KOH, a base. The KOH is placed in an Erlenmeyer flask, and a phenol red indicator is added. So we're using a different indicator. We're using phenol red instead of phenolphthalein. 13.6 milliliters of 1.25 nitric acid is added from the burette to reach the endpoint. So the indicator we're using is not going to affect this first part. So molarity of acid, volume of acid equals molarity of base, volume of base. Okay, so 21 milliliters of unknown molarity KOH. Okay, so that means this time the molarity of the base is what we're solving for. And we have 21 milliliters of it. And then, so that's the stuff in the flask. And then we have 36.7 of 1.25. So it tells me that the nitric acid is 1.25, and I have that volume of it. So, very similar to the last problem, we want to get molarity of base by itself. So we divide both sides by 21. And this whole part cancels out here, the milliliter unit. So it's 1.25 times 36 divided by 21. 3 sig figs looks good. That's going to come out to 2.18. And that's how you use the molarity equation. When you do the lab, you will be applying that to the actual lab simulation and finding molarities in the lab situation. Okay, so then there's another kind of conceptual question here. Let's think about this together. It says, what color change will a student be looking for to stop the titration? Be specific. say the starting color and the ending color. So what we want to do is to imagine what's going on. So we have the Erlenmeyer flask, which is down here, and that's where we've got some stuff. And then we have the burette, which is up here, and there's some stuff in here as well. And we're adding the stuff from here to here. So what have they got in the flask? If we look at the problem, they've got KOH. They've got a base that's in the flask. And then the base. How about a base is in the flask, and there's an acid in the burette. They're putting the indicator in here. So they're putting the indicator in with a base, and there's acid being added to that. Well, let's look back and remind ourselves what phenyl red's colors are in each situation. If we scroll back up here, we learn that phenyl red is an indicator that is yellow in an acid and red in a base. So yellow in an acid. So I've gone too far. So it's yellow in an acid and red in a base. So looking back at the problem, the KOH is placed in the flask. So the flask has the base in it, and the burette here has the acid, which means since it's red in the base, this is going to start off red, and as we add the acid to it, it's going to tend to turn yellow. Okay, thanks for watching. If you have any questions about that, take another look or rewatch. Reach out for sure with any questions. Stop by during office hours. And thank you. Look for another video, another short video to help you with the titration if you're having any trouble with that.